Leah hated me so quietly and so deeply that it felt like it filled the air. I didn't need to hear her words. It was enough to see the way she looked away, how she closed the door behind her, how she stepped back when I passed by. I tried to convince myself that it would pass, that the teenage anger would dissolve like fog, that the wound of losing her mother would heal, and that one day she would look at me differently. But the more I hoped, the more I felt. There was something else beneath her coldness, something old, hidden, heavy, something no one had told me. Aaron insisted that Leah just needed time. He said she had gone through too much, that the loss of her mother had crushed everything soft inside her, and I believed him, or I wanted to believe him, because I loved him, because I wanted us to be a family. But every time Leah walked past me as if I wasn't even there, a hum of anxiety rose in my chest. Not because of her, because of the way Aaron looked at her in those moments, with a fear that wasn't about her words, but about what she might discover. Everything changed one seemingly ordinary evening. Leah was upstairs, as always, locked in her room. Aaron was making dinner, trying to hide his tension in the sound of pots and pans. And I sat on the couch, staring at my phone without actually reading anything, just trying to keep my hands busy so I wouldn't listen to the silence. But the silence was louder. In that silence, I heard the first sound, a dull thud from upstairs, as if something had fallen. Then a sharp rustle. Then silence again. I called for Leah, but she didn't answer. When I walked upstairs, I saw her door slightly open. Leah stood frozen in front of her closet, and at her feet lay a wooden box, old, with dark cracks along the lid. She held a sheet of paper in her hands, yellowed, fragile, as if it had been hidden there for many years. And by the way she stared at it, I knew she had found something that was never meant to be found. When she finally spoke, her voice was dry, as if all the air had been squeezed out of her lungs. "It's a letter. From my mom." I stepped closer. Her hands were trembling as she held the paper. On it were lines written in quick, uneven handwriting, and the first thing I saw made me freeze. "Leah, if you are reading this, then what I feared the most has happened." Leah looked at me, and for the first time there was no hatred in her eyes, only fear. She whispered, "He hid it from me, my whole life." The words cut the air open. Something inside me cracked. On the paper, the sentences carried a pain that could be felt even through the years. "Your father is not the man he pretends to be. Be afraid of his decisions. If something happens to me, it won't be an accident." When Aaron came upstairs and saw us, his face drained of color so fast I thought he might faint. He didn't say a single word. He just stared at the letter as if it had wrapped its fingers around his throat. Leah took a step toward him, her voice shaky, not angry like before, but fragile, almost childlike. "Dad, is this true?" The silence between us became so thick it felt touchable. Aaron ran a hand over his face. He always did that when he was hurting, but now the gesture looked like the movement of a man surrendering. "I'll explain," he said, but his voice broke. I felt Leah tightening her grip on the letter, as if it was the only reality she had left. "Explain now," I said, and Aaron realized there was no escape. He stayed silent for a long time, as if the words were trapped somewhere deep inside, somewhere he never wanted anyone to look. But he finally began speaking, quietly, heavily, each confession sounding like it tore a piece out of him. He said Leah's mother's death was not what he had described, that something happened that day, something he had never been able to tell, not Leah, not me, no one. As he spoke, the truth slowly pulling itself into the open, I felt the life I had been carefully building crack beneath my feet. He spoke of fear, of a secret he had sworn to keep, of a choice he made, a choice that destroyed the lives of everyone he loved. Leah listened without moving, as if her body had turned to stone while a hurricane raged inside. I watched Aaron, and it felt like I was looking at a stranger. the man I lived with, the man I loved. He dissolved in every word, replaced by someone who had once done something so heavy, so terrifying, that he tried to hide it even from his own daughter. The truth lay between us like a burning stone, and I knew none of us would ever be the same again. Leah stood there clutching the letter as if it were the only lifeline she had left, but her eyes never left her father's face. I could see her searching for something in him. Guilt, regret, truth, or perhaps the version of him she still wanted to believe existed somewhere beneath all the years of silence. But Aaron didn't meet her gaze. He looked at the floor, at the walls, anywhere but at his daughter, as though the truth he had carried for so long finally weighed too heavily for him to lift his head. When he finally spoke again, his voice was quieter than before, almost hoarse, as if each word scraped his throat raw. "Your mother, she wasn't supposed to leave that day," he said. Leah's breath hitched sharply, the sound slicing the room in half. The air felt colder suddenly, like the house itself was listening. Aaron swallowed hard, his jaw tightening. "She found something I never wanted her to know." His words didn't make sense at first. Not to me, not to Leah, maybe not even to him. They hung between us, unfinished, ominous, like the shadow of a door he was afraid to open but couldn't avoid anymore. "What did she find?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. My voice sounded different to my own ears, stripped of softness, stripped of patience, just steady because someone had to be. Aaron rubbed his palms against his jeans, a nervous repetition that betrayed how far he was from calm. "I thought I could fix it before she figured out everything. I thought I had time," he whispered. "But she confronted me that morning. She packed her things. She said she was taking Leah and leaving." Leah inhaled sharply, as if the floor beneath her had tilted. "You told me she died in an accident on her way to the store," she said, her voice cracking in the middle. Aaron closed his eyes. "I know." The room shrank. I could feel the walls pulling closer. Leah's hands trembled violently now, the letter wrestling with the movement. "So, what really happened?" Aaron didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked to the small chair by her desk and sat down slowly, as though the truth itself had aged him. When he lifted his head, his eyes were wet, but the tears didn't fall. They just clung to his lashes, refusing to drop, like the guilt he had held onto for years. "She was distracted when she drove off," he finally said, crying, furious. "She threatened to tell someone what she found." He paused, and when he continued, his voice sounded like it was breaking apart. "I followed her." Leah flinched. "You what?" "I followed her," he repeated, his voice barely audible. "I was afraid. I was desperate. I didn't want her to ruin everything. I didn't want to lose you." Leah looked sick. I felt sick. But Aaron wasn't finished. And the worst part was the way he told the story, not with dramatic confession, not with excuses, but with the exhausted honesty of someone who no longer had the strength to lie. "She pulled over on the side of the road. She got out of the car. She was yelling at me, saying she would expose everything. She stepped backward to walk away, and her foot slipped on the gravel." Leah blinked, frozen. "I reached out to grab her," Aaron whispered, "but I didn't reach her in time." Silence. A silence that swallowed the room whole, a silence that made even breathing feel inappropriate. "And the truck." Aaron's voice dissolved into the stillness. It came out of nowhere. Leah covered her mouth with her hand, but the sob escaped anyway. Not loud, not dramatic, but small and horrifying, like the first crack in a structure about to collapse. "You told me she died instantly." "She did," Aaron whispered. "But you need to understand. I blamed myself. I panicked. I didn't know how to tell you. And then I found the letter she wrote to you, the one your grandmother later put away in that box. It made everything worse. It made everything look intentional." Leah shook her head violently. "You hid it from me. You made me hate her memory. You made me think—" She couldn't finish. Aaron took a step toward her. "Leah, I loved your mother." "Stop," she said sharply, pulling back like his presence burned. "You think I can believe anything you say right now?" Aaron's face crumpled. I didn't speak. I couldn't. My mind was racing through everything I had ever known about this man, about our life, about the pieces he had shown me and the pieces he hid. He wasn't a murderer. He wasn't innocent. He was something in between, something flawed, broken, terrified, guilty, and I didn't know what to do with that. Leah pushed past him, clutching the letter like a shield, and stormed down the hallway. Her footsteps echoed until they didn't, until a door slammed hard enough to shake dust from the ceiling corners. Aaron didn't move. He stood there, staring at the empty doorway, breathing hard, like he had run miles without going anywhere. When he finally spoke, it was to me, but his voice didn't sound like his. "I lost her," he whispered, "and now I've lost Leah too." I stared at him, unsure whether to comfort him or recoil, because some part of me understood Leah. Some part of me feared what else might still be buried under years of silence. Some part of me wondered, if the letter never fell out of that box, if Leah never found it, would any of this have come to light? And then another thought struck me. Cold, sharp, unsettling. What exactly had Leah's mother discovered that morning? What truth was she ready to expose? Aaron had told us the story of the accident, but not the secret behind it. Not yet. And deep inside, under the ache and fear and confusion, I knew that was only the beginning. Leah didn't come downstairs for the rest of the evening. The house felt hollow without her footsteps, without the distant sound of her music, without that persistent tension she used to create just by being in the same room as me. It was strange, how the silence she left behind felt heavier than her hostility ever did. Aaron sat at the kitchen table long after the food had gone cold. His eyes were fixed on nothing, on some place far beyond the walls of our home, somewhere in the past he had tried so desperately to bury. I stood by the counter, arms crossed, watching him and at the same time afraid to watch him too closely. He looked like a man who had aged 10 years in the span of one confession. I wanted to ask. I wanted to scream. I wanted to demand the truth he still hadn't told. But instead, I heard myself ask quietly, "What did she find?" Aaron didn't look up. "I told you," he said. "She misunderstood something. She thought—" "No," I cut him off. "Not that. Not the argument. I'm asking what she discovered that morning. What was she going to expose?" His eyes flickered just for a second, but I saw it. The fear. The truth pressing up against the cage he kept it in. "I can't." "You have to," I said, and my voice was firmer this time, steadier. "You owe that to her, and to Leah." Aaron's jaw tightened. He rubbed his temples, exhaling shakily. "I made mistakes." That's not an answer. He stood abruptly, pushing the chair back with a harsh scrape. "I need air," he muttered, and walked toward the back door. I watched him step outside, into the dark backyard, illuminated only by the weak porch light. He leaned on the railing, his shoulders rising and falling unevenly. And something about the way he stood there, hands trembling slightly, head bowed, told me that whatever truth he was withholding wasn't just painful, It was dangerous. I stayed at the window, watching him for a moment, trying to decipher who this man really was. Then I heard a faint, hesitant sound behind me. Soft footsteps coming down the stairs. Leah. Her face was blotchy from crying, her hair messy, the letter still clutched in her hand, as if she couldn't let go of it without losing something vital. She didn't look at me. She walked straight to the fridge, opened it, closed it again. She wasn't looking for anything, she was looking for composure. After a moment, she turned to face me. "Did he tell you everything?" "No," I said honestly. "Not yet." She nodded once, as if she expected that answer. "He never tells the full truth," she whispered. Her fingers tightened around the letter, wrinkling the paper further. I always knew something was wrong. I didn't know what, but I felt it. The way he watched me sometimes, like he reminded me of something he wanted to forget, or something he was afraid I'd remember. I stepped closer. "Your mother's letter doesn't say what she found, just that she was scared." Leah swallowed hard. "She was," she said. "I remember pieces. I was little, but I remember her crying in the bathroom, whispering on the phone, telling someone she had proof." "Proof of what?" Leah's eyes filled again, but this time not with sadness, with dread. "She never said. She always told me I didn't need to worry, that she'd fix it, that she'd protect me." Her voice trembled. "But she didn't." At that moment, Aaron came back inside, closing the door softly behind him. Leah tensed immediately, her entire body stiffening like a wire pulled too tight. Aaron noticed. He hesitated, then spoke quietly. "I won't lie anymore," he said. "I promise." Leah didn't move. Aaron looked at both of us, the exhaustion in his face turning into something darker, resignation, perhaps, or fear of what he was about to confess. "What your mother discovered was about my job, about the people I was involved with, about money that didn't belong to me." I felt a chill run down my spine. Leah's eyes widened, confusion mixing with terror. "What are you talking about?" I whispered. Aaron sat back down, but this time he didn't avoid our eyes. He looked straight at us. "I used to work with a man named Dylan. He wasn't just a coworker. He was connected to people who don't like mistakes, to people who don't forgive." Leah stared at him. "Connected how?" Aaron's gaze dropped. "In ways your mother wasn't supposed to find out." My pulse quickened. "Aaron, are you saying you were involved with something criminal?" He didn't answer with words. He didn't need to. The silence was enough. The tremor in his hands was enough. The fear in his eyes, that was more than enough. I got mixed up. "And when your mother found out, she threatened to go to the police." Leah gasped softly, her knees buckling a little. "So you followed her? To stop her?" "No, no," Aaron said quickly. "Not to hurt her, never. I just wanted to talk, to explain, to make her listen, but she didn't trust me anymore. And then..." He forced himself to breathe. "And then the accident happened, but the people I worked with didn't believe it was an accident." A cold, sharp fear stabbed through me. "What do you mean?" Aaron's lips pressed together tightly. "They thought she talked, that she told someone." Leah shook her head. No, she wouldn't. "But they didn't care," Aaron said. "They blamed me. They thought I had let things slip, that I owed them." I felt my blood run cold. "And now?" I whispered. Aaron looked at me, and in his eyes I saw the truth he had been carrying. They never stopped watching. Leah covered her mouth. I felt my heart drop into my stomach. Aaron continued, voice shaking. "And if they find out that letter has surfaced, if they think Leah knows something—" He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Leah was no longer just a traumatized girl who hated me. She was a target. And suddenly, the letter in her trembling hands wasn't just a piece of the past. It was a fuse. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lily's face at the table. Pale, stiff, unreadable, and the way she held the letter like it was something radioactive. The silence between us had become almost physical, like a wall I couldn't break through. The next morning, she didn't come down for breakfast. I heard her walking around her room, heard drawers opening and closing, heard something fall. Maybe a book, maybe the letter, but she didn't come out. Daniel left early. He kissed me on the cheek, said he'd call later, said he had a long meeting. He didn't mention the letter. Not one word. Of course he wouldn't. He was hoping Lily would calm down on her own. He always believed silence solved problems, even when silence was the problem. By noon, I finally gathered the courage to knock on her door. "Lily, can we talk?" For a long moment, nothing. Then a quiet, flat voice. "It's open." She was sitting on the floor beside her bed, legs crossed, letter in her lap. Her eyes were red but dry now. The calm after a storm, but the dangerous kind. The kind where you don't know if a second wave is coming. When she looked at me, I felt something I had never felt from her before. Not dislike, not resentment, not even anger. It was suspicion. As if she'd discovered I was part of something she should have known about sooner. "I read it again," she said quietly, "and I think my dad lied about more than just this." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" I asked carefully. She held up the letter, the same one she'd found in the box yesterday, the one Daniel had tried to hide from her, the one written by her biological mother, the one that completely contradicted everything Daniel had told her for years. He never told me she wanted to see me. He never told me she wrote. He never told me she tried. Her voice cracked on the last word, and my heart broke for her. I sat down slowly, leaving some space, not wanting to overwhelm her. "Lily, I didn't know about any of it. I swear to you." Her eyes flicked to mine, searching for a lie. She didn't find one. "I know," she whispered at last. "That's the worst part. I don't think you're the one who lied." A long, shaky breath escaped her. "Do you know what he told me all these years? He said she abandoned me, that she walked away without looking back, that she never cared." I closed my eyes in pain. "I'm sorry." "I believed him," Lily whispered. "Because why would my dad lie to me? Why would he hide something this big?" Her voice trembled. "Why would he keep her letter? Why would he never tell me she reached out? What else didn't he tell me?" I didn't have answers, but I could feel, deeply, that this wasn't just about the letter anymore. This was about trust, about the cracks that had been forming in their relationship for years without either of them noticing. Then, very quietly, Lily asked, "How long have you known him?" 7 years? Then you know why he does things like this." I hesitated. "Lily?" "You do," she insisted. "My dad likes to control everything, every narrative, every story, every detail. Sometimes it comes from fear," I said softly. "No, sometimes it comes from guilt." That hit me harder than I expected. Because I knew, on some level, I'd always known, Daniel had a past he never fully opened up about. And for years, I didn't push him. I thought protecting Lily from pain was a good enough reason to keep silent. But now, I wasn't sure. Lily looked at me again, something almost fragile in her expression. Can you do something for me? Anything. She took a shaky breath. Tell me what really happened. With her, with my mom. Tell me everything you know, even if it's not much. I need the truth, not his version. I swallowed hard. This was the moment everything would change. I told her what little I knew. That Daniel had once described the breakup as messy, that he said Lily's mother struggled emotionally, that there had been court battles, arguments, custody hearings, but he had never spoken about her reaching out, never mentioned letters, never admitted to hiding anything. When I finished, Lily said nothing for a long time. Then she got up suddenly. I need to talk to her. The words hit me like ice. Lily, you don't understand, she said firmly. If she wanted to see me back then, maybe she still wants to. Maybe all this time I hated her for nothing. Maybe, I said gently, but contacting her now, it could be complicated. I don't care. She stood up straighter, her chin lifting with a determination I'd never seen in her before. I'm going to find her, with or without my dad. I deserve answers. I deserve the truth. She grabbed her phone and the letter, took a deep breath, and walked out of the room. I didn't stop her, but a cold, instinctive fear twisted inside me. Because I knew something Lily didn't. Her mother wasn't the only one Daniel had lied about. And if Lily kept digging, she would eventually uncover the secret that could destroy their family completely. And I wasn't sure I'd be able to protect anyone when that moment came. Lily didn't come home that evening. Daniel returned from work just after 6, tired, distracted, loosening his tie as he stepped into the kitchen. He kissed my cheek absent-mindedly, already reaching for a glass of water. "Where's Lily?" he asked, not even noticing the tension in the air. I kept my voice steady. "Out." He frowned. "Out where?" I waited a second too long. That was enough. Daniel froze, the glass halfway to his mouth. "Is something wrong?" I exhaled slowly. "You should sit down." He didn't. Instead, he lowered the glass onto the counter with a quiet thud. "What happened?" His voice sharpened. "Did you two argue again?" "No. This time, it's not about me." He watched me warily. I continued. "She found the letter." The color drained from his face. "What letter?" he said, automatically. We both knew it was a lie. "The one from her mother. The one you hid." His jaw tightened, like he was clenching not just his teeth, but every muscle in his face. He turned away from me, pacing once, twice, then gripping the back of a chair with both hands. "Where is she?" he asked quietly. "I don't know," I said truthfully. He looked like he might punch something. Instead, he lowered his head, breathing unevenly. "I did what I had to do. You don't know what that woman put us through." "I know you didn't tell Lily the truth." "As if she would have understood when she was 7, he snapped. "She hated you for years. Do you think she would have forgiven her?" "This isn't about forgiveness. It's about trust." He closed his eyes. And something in me understood in that moment that this wasn't guilt he was drowning in, it was fear. Deep, raw, consuming fear. "Daniel, what aren't you telling me?" He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled out his phone and dialed Lily. It rang, voicemail. Again, voicemail. On the 5th attempt, he slammed his phone onto the table. "What if she found her?" he whispered. I froze. His voice wasn't angry now. It was terrified. "She told me she wants answers," I said quietly. Daniel swore under his breath. No, no, no. She cannot meet her like this. She has no idea who she's dealing with. My heart pounded. There it was, the crack in the wall, the piece of truth he never allowed to surface. Daniel, I said slowly, what happened back then, really? Why do you sound like she's dangerous? He shook his head violently. No, you don't understand. If Lily goes to her... He stopped mid-sentence. The front door opened. We both turned. Lily stepped inside. Her hair was messy from the wind, her cheeks red, her breathing uneven as if she'd been crying or running. Her hands were shaking. Daniel rushed to her, but she stepped back. Don't, she whispered. Don't touch me. A silence fell so heavy I felt it press into my skin. Lily, Daniel said softly. Where were you? She looked him straight in the eyes. I found her. Daniel's entire body stiffened. What? I found my mom, Lily said, voice trembling, and I talked to her. Daniel swallowed hard. Lily, listen. No, she interrupted. You listen. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. My mom didn't abandon me, she whispered. She didn't walk away. She didn't disappear. You lied about everything. Daniel paled. Lily's hand shook as she extended the paper toward him. She told me what really happened. I stared at her, my heart pounding. Lily, what did she say? Lily turned to me first, as if seeking something solid. Then slowly she answered. My mom said he took me. The room went silent. Utterly silent. Daniel's eyes widened in shock, or guilt. I couldn't tell which. Lily continued, voice breaking. She said she fought for me. She said she begged you not to take me away. She said she tried for years to get me back, but you made sure she never could. My breath caught. Daniel looked like he'd been stabbed. That's not true. Lily, she is manipulating you. She showed me the documents, court papers, requests for visitation, letters you never responded to. She kept everything. Daniel slowly lowered himself into a chair, like his legs couldn't hold him anymore. And then Lily said the words that made everything tilt. She told me you had a reason to hide me from her. A beat of silence. She said she knew something about you, something you never wanted me to find out. Daniel didn't breathe. Neither did I. Lily's voice dropped to a whisper that felt like a knife sliding into the dark. She said the secret isn't about her. Her eyes filled with tears again. It's about you, Dad. Daniel finally looked up, and there was fear, not of losing her, but fear of the truth itself. For a moment, I thought Daniel might faint. His face had gone so white it was almost gray, his eyes unfocused, his hands trembling slightly on the table, but he said nothing, not a single word. And silence, his silence, was far more terrifying than any outburst. Lily stood across from him, shaking but unbroken. She was no longer the scared teenager who used to hide behind her sarcasm. She was a young woman demanding the truth. And Daniel looked like a man whose entire world had just cracked open. Say something, Lily whispered. Dad, is it true? Did you take me from her? Daniel pressed his lips together, trying to gather himself, but all that came out was a shaky exhale. I protected you, he finally said. I did what I had to do. That's not an answer, Lily shot back. What did you do? His eyes flicked to me for a fraction of a second, a silent plea, don't make me say it, not here, not like this. But there was no going back now. I made a choice, Daniel said, his voice low. Your mother, she was unstable. She couldn't care for you. You were a baby, Lily. You were in danger. That's not what she told me. She said you lied to the court, that you used your father's connections, that you twisted everything so she'd lose custody. Daniel's jaw clenched, but he didn't deny it. So it's true? Lily's voice cracked. Dad, did you lie? Daniel swallowed hard. I did what I thought was right. Lily let out a broken laugh, the kind that sounded more like a sob. You keep saying that, but who decided what was right? You? Did you ever think about what I might have wanted? About what she wanted? About how much it would hurt me to grow up thinking I was abandoned? Daniel flinched, visibly. I didn't want you to know, he whispered. You were too young. And now? Am I still too young to know the truth? Daniel lifted his head. Something dark and exhausted lived in his eyes. You think that letter was the whole story? You think she showed you everything? Lily, your mother didn't just lose custody. She lost her mind. No, Lily cut him off sharply, stepping closer. No more excuses. No more spinning the story so you're the hero. She told me there was something you did, something you were afraid would come out. Daniel froze. The room shrank. What did she say? He asked, his voice suddenly hoarse. Lily's breath trembled. She said the secret was about why you took me away, that it had nothing to do with custody, that it had to do with something you did before I was born. Daniel's expression changed, subtly, but unmistakably. A flicker of panic, a flicker of guilt. A flicker of something he'd buried for almost 2 decades. She's lying, he said too quickly. She always lied. She showed me proof, Lily whispered. Daniel stopped. Just stopped. His breath caught in his throat. What proof? He asked. Lily opened her bag and took out a small, folded paper. Not the letter, a different document. Older, faded around the edges. Daniel's face went rigid. He recognized it. I could see it in his eyes. Lily unfolded it and placed it on the table in front of him. I didn't understand at first, she said softly, but she explained, and now I understand everything. Daniel didn't touch the paper. He didn't even breathe near it. His hands curled into fists. What did she tell you? He asked again, barely audible. Lily's voice trembled as she answered. She said you weren't just afraid of losing custody. A long, painful silence. You were afraid she'd tell me the truth about you, about what you did before I was born, about the reason she tried to leave you. Daniel looked up sharply. His eyes, usually controlled, composed, were wild now. Lily, whatever she told you, she said you left you, Lily interrupted, tears rising, because you hurt her. I felt my stomach drop. She said you hurt her so badly once that she thought you might hurt me too. She said she tried to leave for my safety. Daniel's lips parted, but nothing came out. And then, Lily continued, her voice cracking, she showed me a restraining order, one she filed against you when she was pregnant with me. My entire body tensed. Daniel closed his eyes, his entire frame shaking. That's a lie, he whispered. That is a lie. But she has the paperwork, Lily said. Signed, stamped, dated. She didn't just say it. She proved it. Daniel looked at me, helpless, desperate, as if begging me to side with him. But I couldn't say anything. I didn't know what to believe anymore. Lily's shoulders shook. You told me she abandoned me. But she didn't abandon me. You took me from her because you were afraid she'd tell me the truth about you, about what you did before I was born. A tear rolled down Lily's cheek. Dad, did you hurt her? Daniel's voice was almost inaudible. I never touched her. Not the way she claims. She was spiraling. She made things up. She was paranoid. I tried to help. But there's a restraining order, Lily insisted. Daniel wiped a shaking hand over his face. That order was dropped. She withdrew it. The judge dismissed it. But she filed it. She filed it for a reason. Why, Dad? Why? Daniel didn't respond. Because there was no good answer. Lily's next words came out in a whisper that shattered the room. What else have you lied about? She waited. He said nothing. And that silence was enough. With a shaky breath, Lily stepped back, grabbed her bag, and headed for the door. Lily, wait! Daniel pleaded. Standing so abruptly, the chair scraped loudly against the floor, but she didn't stop. You had 18 years to tell me the truth. You chose to hide it. Now I'll find it myself. The door closed behind her with a quiet click. Daniel stood frozen, staring at the floor, as if everything inside him had collapsed. And I had never felt so afraid of the truth in my life. The house felt unbearably still after Lily left. Daniel stood in the middle of the kitchen, staring at the door like he expected her to walk back in and say she didn't mean it. But she didn't return. Minutes dragged into hours, and the silence between us thickened like fog. I watched him closely. His shoulders had dropped, his chest barely moved with each breath, and the expression on his face was something I had never seen before. Not anger, not fear. It was defeat. Finally, I spoke. You need to tell me the truth. Daniel's head lifted slowly, as if the words were too heavy for him to process. What truth? He whispered. You know exactly what I'm asking. He sat down mechanically, hands clasped together so tightly his knuckles turned white. I didn't hurt her, he said at last, voice raw. Not in the way Lily thinks, not physically. Never physically. But you did something big enough that she filed a restraining order while pregnant. Daniel closed his eyes. When he spoke, his voice trembled. I lost control once. My heart skipped. What do you mean, once? He exhaled shakily. We fought. She was screaming, I was exhausted, and I grabbed her wrist. Harder than I meant to, hard enough that she said it scared her. I swallowed. Daniel, she filed the order the next morning, he said. But she didn't follow through. She withdrew it after a week. Her lawyer convinced her the custody battle would go easier if she didn't pursue it. I wasn't sure if I believed him. Not fully. But I also knew trauma changed the way people remembered things. And the truth was rarely clean. Still, something didn't add up. But that's not all, I said quietly. There's more. Something you're hiding. Something that terrified you when she mentioned it. Daniel opened his eyes, and for the first time since I'd known him, I saw a man truly cornered. Her story isn't the whole truth, he insisted. She left out the part where she wasn't well. She had episodes. She would disappear for days. She'd scream at me for things I didn't do. I thought the baby would calm her, make things better, but it only got worse. How worse? I asked. Daniel hesitated. Too long. She threatened to leave with the baby, he said finally. To take Lily and disappear. She said I'd never see her again. That's why I fought for custody. Not because of what she tells people now, because I had to protect my daughter. He rubbed his forehead. But I knew the courts wouldn't believe me if she painted me as the villain. I didn't have evidence. She had the restraining order. She had her version. And she was persuasive. A pause. So I used my father's lawyer. Yes, I pushed for full custody. Yes, I painted her as unstable. Because I believed she was. And now? Do you still believe that? Daniel didn't answer. Instead, he whispered, "None of that is the secret she means. None of that is what she's going to find out." A chill ran down my spine. Then what is she talking about? I asked. Daniel stared at the table, as if the grain of the wood held the answer. I should have told her. Years ago. Before all this. Told her what? He didn't look at me when he answered. I'm not who she thinks I am. My breath caught. What does that mean? He leaned back in the chair, staring at the ceiling like he was asking for strength. When Lily was born, I wasn't sure she was mine. The world tilted. I sat down slowly. You think she's not your daughter? Daniel shook his head. No, I know she's mine. Now I know. I did a test years later, in secret. She's my biological daughter. But his voice didn't sound relieved. So what's the secret? I pressed gently. Daniel swallowed. The secret is that before Lily was born, her mother told me the baby wasn't mine. She said she had someone else, another man, and she threatened to leave me for him. My heart pounded harder. And that's why you grabbed her wrist? No, Daniel said quietly. That was a different fight. But after she told me that, I wasn't myself. I was terrified, angry, confused. I didn't trust anything she said, not even the truth. He ran a hand through his hair. She told me later she'd lied, that she said it to hurt me, to push me away. But I don't know what was real and what wasn't anymore. I frowned. But Lily said her mom claimed she left you for safety, not because of another man. She lies, Daniel whispered. She always lies to make herself look innocent. But something about the way he said it felt hollow, as if even he didn't fully believe it. As long as Lily thinks I'm a monster, he said, she'll keep digging, and eventually she'll find him. Find who? I asked. Daniel finally looked at me. His eyes were filled with a fear I had never known him capable of. The man her mother was involved with. The man who might have been Lily's father. My blood ran cold. And if she finds him, Daniel continued, voice shaking, she'll learn the truth her mother never told her. And what is that truth? I whispered. Daniel's answer was barely audible. That he wasn't just some man. I stared. He was dangerous. Daniel's voice cracked. And I ruined his life. The moment the words left his mouth, I knew. This was only the beginning of the real story. And whatever Daniel had done, it wasn't just a mistake. It was something that had the power to destroy everything. The silence after Daniel's confession hung in the room like a storm about to break. I could feel the weight of every unsaid word pressing against the walls, the air thick with fear, regret, and the fragments of a family torn apart by secrets. I took a step closer, my voice trembling. And Lily? She'll find out? Daniel nodded slowly. His eyes, haunted and desperate, met mine. She already has the first clue, he whispered. The letter her mother tried to hide. It's only a matter of time before she connects everything. I swallowed hard. What do we do now? He shook his head. Nothing can stop it. All we can do is be ready. Be honest. For the first time in years, she deserves the truth. All of it. even if it destroys the life she thought she knew. I could see the tears forming in his eyes, not the tears of a victim, but of a man who had carried a mountain of guilt for too long. For years, he had hidden behind walls of half-truths, thinking protection meant deception. But now, everything was unraveling. And then I understood. Lily wasn't the only one who had been misled. We all had been. The next morning, the letter surfaced. I watched as Lily read it, her eyes widening, her hands trembling. Every emotion played across her face: confusion, anger, betrayal, and a flicker of understanding. She looked up at Daniel, and for the first time, her expression softened. Not completely, but enough to hint at the possibility of forgiveness. "It's a lot," she whispered. Daniel nodded. "I know. I've failed you in ways I can't even explain, but the truth is finally here." She looked at me, then at him, and for the first time, I saw the bridge forming between them. Fragile, uneven, but real. The danger, the lies, the past, they were still there, shadowing every step. But for the first time, so was hope. Because the letter had done what nothing else could. It shattered illusions, yes, but it also made the truth undeniable. And sometimes, truth, no matter how painful, is the only thing strong enough to rebuild a family. And as Daniel reached out a tentative hand toward his daughter, I realized that the secret that had threatened to destroy everything might, in the end, be the very thing that could save them.